Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Frederik Rudolph, and I would like to welcome you to this webinar, which is on data management and exploitation for sustainable urban mobility. And this webinar is a SUITS webinar, part of the series of webinars that are conducted by the SUITS project. And before we start and dive a little bit deeper in what we are speaking today about data management and exploitation for sustainable urban mobility, I would like to present you some slides, some introductory slides about SUITS project. SUITS is a Civitas initiative funded by the European Commission's Horizon 2020 program. We are a research and innovation action with different partners, research partners, but also implementation partners. We receive a funding of approximately 4 million euros in a 4-year project. And this is the final year of the project. So we have, let's say, done all our work, and we are now in the stage where we disseminate our results. And yeah, you see the list of contributors, the list of partners here. We're evenly distributed all over Europe, and I would say not only the research partners are very important, but also the cities we are working with as implementation partners, 9 cities here in Europe. And our objective is to increase the capacity of local authorities to develop and implement sustainable mobility and transport. So you can see here the bold words, the capacity of local authorities. This is really at the heart of SUITS project. So as we work together with these 9 cities, they really want to become learning organizations. They want to change their company culture, if you like, in a way that they will be then developing and implementing more sustainable mobility and transport policies and measures. And you can see where we work in. You see these 6 bubbles at the bottom of the slides. For example, we worked on innovative financing. We developed a lot of tools that provide some information about financing mechanisms for sustainable transport measures. We provided evidence and argument for sustainable measures. And if you look at the 4th bubble, we also worked on freight and citizen data gathering. So, and this is what we are speaking now about in this webinar. So the idea is we have in this age of digitalization the possibility to collect big data, and I mean free floating car data, for example, and not only collect it but also use it in a way that we can use it to inform decision makers for more, so they can develop more sustainable transport measures for the cities, for example, traffic flow data for the city, and how the information about that can shape the future of the transport system in a city. Here, this is a slide about our outcomes. We have a capacity building program. We have a number of learning assets. So e-learning material and webinars are part of these learning assets as well. And this webinar is part of these learning assets as well. And we also have decision support tools to assist in these areas I just mentioned. And you can access all these outcomes on our website, which is suitsproject.eu. And this brings me to today's webinar. We see here we have 3 speakers and we have 3 slots. The first slot is the Gpx Extraction Tool. This is a presentation that will be started by Fotis Liotopoulos, who is the general manager of Boeing, a Greek computer company. So he will start and present the Gpx Extraction Tool, which is a web-based database for the selection and extraction of global user mobility traces, so GPX files. And then Miriam Pira, who is a researcher at the Politecnico di Torino, she will present a case study how this Gpx Extraction Tool can be applied in the city of Torino. And then we will have a questions and answer session, and you are really welcome to engage with us. Please provide your comments, your questions to us, and engage with us into a discussion. After this, we will start with our second slot, which is the presentation and discussion of the MyPolis Live platform. MyPolisLive.net is a web platform for real-time and historical urban traffic monitoring, and Fotis will present us this. And he will also present a case study, which is its application, so the application of this web platform in the city of Calamaria. And we will also have a questions and answer session then after this. And again, please feel welcome to engage with us into a discussion. And then finally, the third slot is the Outlook slot, and Mireia Calvo, who is project manager at Itene in Valencia, she will conclude this webinar by providing us more information about the impact of these tools. We will be presenting the usability, its target groups, and how business cases can be produced out of these tools. Okay, this is what we are expecting today, but before I hand over to Fotis, 2 more slides about technicalities. First, I already mentioned it. We produced some e-learning courses in the Suits project, and we will also produce an e-learning course about data management and exploitation for sustainable urban transport. So an e-learning course which complements this webinar. It will start in July. We will keep you posted about that. You will receive an email when it starts, and you can access this e-learning course just for your information, and all the other courses we already produced and webinars at the Suits project website. It will link to a platform which is called nuacampus.org. It stands for New Urban Agenda Campus.org. This is the platform where we provide our e-learning and the webinars. Yes, so it's definitely useful to have a look at that. And then final slide about the technicalities. I mean, we are all very, let's say, familiar with online conference tool in the times of the pandemic, but maybe you don't know this GoToWebinar tool. So we have 2 options, or you have 2 options to engage with us. If you want to have, a comment, or if you want to pose a question, you can either raise your hand, so click on the button, raise your hand. I, as a moderator, will see this, and I can unmute you, and you can tell us what you think. You can pose a question, whatever you would like, and you can engage with us into a discussion. Second option here is in this panel, you should all see to type a question into the chat function. And then I can read your question and we can discuss it here with the speakers we have. Okay, so I hope all is fine. I hope you can hear me and see me. And I now hand over to Fotis to you. Try to manage this. And Fotis will present us the Gpx Extraction Tool. Fotis, the floor is yours. You should be able to, yes, share your screen.
Thank you, Fred. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody's healthy and okay, given the circumstances we live in. My presentation today is going to be about traffic data collection tools and analysis, and I'm going to advocate for crowdsourcing, present our platform developed by Boeing, called MyPolisLive.net, and also present the Calamaria pilot. So what's the vision? In the Suits project, we provided some tools, some means of supporting local authorities, cities, small and medium-sized cities, basically, in their sample implementations with respect to data. Some are sustainable urban mobility plans. And in order to be able to handle data, the local authorities first they had to do that in 3 phases. The first phase is data collection. Data collection has to be to use sustainable data sourcing. It needs to have more accurate and complete data sets, and also needs real-time and historical data. In the second phase, the collected data needs to be selected. We need to be selective in our data searches, be able to deal with big data, and also need to standardize and convert between different data formats. The third phase, after selecting the data, we need to be able to visualize it. So we need data visualization tools, and we also need these tools for urban traffic monitoring and in order to provide input for decision support systems. On the right column here, you can see the different tools for each phase that we have developed for the Suits project. So my presentation is structured basically in two parts. The first part that I'm presenting right now is about tools that handle historical mobility data. And the second part, which I will present later, is going to be about tools for real-time mobility data. So in this first part, I'm going to talk about how cities can get user contributions in terms of files, basically, so offline data, not real-time, how to convert to GPX format, which is a standard file format for GPS data, and eventually how to select GPX files, whatever is necessary to support your research or whatever application you have, out of huge, potentially huge big data database. So this will provide, these tools will provide input to research and other applications. For example, traffic models that have been developed by the Politecnico di Torino, which will be presented by Miriam after my first presentation. For the second part, I'm going to basically talk about crowdsourcing, advocate crowdsourcing, talk about the Kalamaria pilot, describe the mypolislive.net platform, web platform, and give you a glimpse of it, and also present our open data repository that has been developed during the Suits project. So the first part is a description of tools and a demonstration of tools that handle historical mobility data. Basically, we're concentrating on a standard file format for GPS exchange data, which is the Gpx format. Gpx is a standard XML type file format, which is used by several applications. And this is our chosen standard. So during Suits, we have developed a number of tools. Specifically, I'm just listing 4 of them right now, and I will present in more detail the 4th one. So the first tool was or is a converter, basically a format converter from SBOINC trace files to GPX format. SBOINC has a navigator called UltiNavi, and there is a car edition also for this kind of this navigator available for Android. And this application, this Android application, generates trace file, mobility trace files, which using this tool can be converted to the standard GPX format. The second tool is for GDPR compliance. We developed this tool that does GPX file anonymization and pseudonymization. Basically takes all the personal information out of the GPX file. The third tool is a tool that inserts GPX files into a geospatial database. Every city can set up their own geospatial database and insert their own collected GPX files into it. It can handle a large number of data, and actually we in the Suits project, we have over 500,000 of GPX files inserted in such database, which I will present right next using the 4th tool, which is a geoselection tool of GPX trace data sets, basically selection and visualization of such files. So this is how the tool looks like. The tool, first of all, presents a view of all the available traces in GPX trace files that exist in our database. Here you can see the number of files available in each area as you focus in the world map. If you focus, for example, nearer in Rome, over Rome, you can see in red circles how many GPX trace files are available in this area. So using the tool, you can point and click at a certain point and then define a circle of a certain radius, in this case around Torino, radius 12 kilometers, and select all the files or the GPX file available in our database that reside in this area. And then you can view, you can have a list, produce a list of all these available files. You can view each individual file, as I'm going to demonstrate later on, and also download any of them or all of them at the same time. Here's the example of centering around Torino and in an area radius of 15 kilometers. You can select any traces starting or having a start or destination, or start only or destination only within the circular area. Press refresh and then get the list of these files. I can show you now a real demo. This is the work view, and you can see that we have almost 5,425,000 traces in Europe. We can zoom further in. Let's go to, let's say, London. And as we zoom further down, we press the show on map. We can see how many traces are available in the area of London, and then we click and we increase the radius around London, select all the available traces, press refresh, and then we get the list of all the available trace files that are in our database in this specific area. You can see the size of each file, and we can download the file or we can view. Here you can see the trace that I have selected. We can have a preview of that trace, and we can download the 4,168 traces that have been selected. So this concludes my first part of the presentation, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask right now. Otherwise, I'll hand on the floor to Fred.
Yeah, thank you, Fotis, so much. I'm just seeing whether we have any questions so far. I don't see any question, but if you have, please don't be shy. Don't be shy. You can raise your hand, or you can also use the chat function which had already been used. I see the first question. So, Mr. Wow, I can't pronounce your name. But the question is, it's just let me see. How is the integration with other applications, Fotis? So the question to you is, for example, in the integration with ArcGIS, which is the, I think, geographic standard application. Yeah, how can you integrate your tool with that?
Since we have developed the tool, we can provide any interfaces that we have specifications for. So integrating with ArcGIS is not provided right now, but it can certainly be provided in the future if there is a requirement like that. Sure.
Okay, thank you. And this was the question by Ivana. I hope this is the right pronunciation. I have another question, Fotis, to you from Luca Barbadoro, and the question is whether this tool is available to public.
We will make these tools available to public, yes, and use for free for all cities, but this will be probably 2 or 3 months down the road, because right now we're combining all these tools in what we call the SUITS project capacity building toolbox. So it's going to be a one-stop shop for all these tools and even more, basically all the outcomes of the SUITS project.
Okay, thank you. In the chat function, I don't see any further question. Except from Markus Lavic, he was asking whether this is spoiling software. I think yes, or am I wrong for this?
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. So let me check whether there is somebody who raised their hand. Yes, Buvana. So I will try to unmute you. If you have another question, let me just check if I can do so. 1 second. Yes, you should be able to speak now out into your microphone.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, brilliant.
Yeah, super. Thanks for this interesting presentation. Regarding the trace maps, I have doubt because since it's a long question, I don't want to type that. I just want to make it precise. The download of all the trace files were interesting, but I'm just thinking myself how this will be possible for a normal researcher to get analysis on a Google map. Is that available already or to download directly, or I should have some kind of permission to get all the trace files, because it would be so interesting for any analysis on traffic. And I just wanted to know if there is some kind of permission required for all this kind of trace files. For example, I'm from Germany, I'm doing research here. So if I need to analyze a particular city in Germany, how about the possibility of this trace file for my analysis or for further? Is the permission is allowed for any researchers to do that?
Well, the tool can be applied to any database of any files, any GPX files that are collected. The list that I have showed you here in my demonstration basically consists of OpenStreetMap trace files which have been anonymized or pseudonymized rather first. So the licensing of those files is has to be respected. There's also some other SBOINC data files, GPX trace files, which are included in that database, and these are also free for use for research purposes, basically for non-commercial purposes. So every time it's wise to check the license type of each data sets. And these data sets will be available, some of them already are in open data repositories around that are available.
Okay, wow, thanks a lot. I just wanted to know about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Buvana. And I just try to mute you now. I have another question from Luca, and that will conclude the question and answers session for today. Not for today, sorry, for this slot. Because we want to carry on then with Miriam Pira. She will also provide us with more information about this GPX tool. So the question from Luca is whether it is available info of type of vehicles. And so are the types of vehicles related to the GPX files? That's basically the question. I hope yeah.
If I understood correctly the question, the type of vehicle is not relevant. I mean, the GPX files can be recorded, generated by some application, even for citizens or any type of vehicles. So yeah, it's irrelevant. It's basically GPX format is basically a GPS data format. Okay. Unless I missed the question.
if there is any further questions, then please. Oh, there's more questions popping up now. So let's postpone these questions. I see that you have questions, and let's carry on with Miriam from Politecnico di Torino. Maybe that will answer some questions, and we will have a questions and answers session then after Miriam's presentation, and maybe that is a better way to move forward. So Miriam, I give you the panel, the moderation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. But I would like thank you very much, Fotis, for the first part of presentation. And just to explain what we are going to do and which kind of data I will talk about, I will ask Fred for his support. And I think we can start with a poll just to get better in on topics.
Sure, can do. 1 second, please. So this is a poll you should be able to see now. So the question is, and you can have, you should now be able to provide to choose one option under these multiple choices. So the question is, how many online purchases, so with at-home job place delivery, have you made in the last month, approximately? So again, should be possible for you to choose one of the answers. I see, yes, I see that 40% have already clicked and decided for an answer. I will wait for some more seconds. So the poll is actually how many, or the question is, how many online purchases have you made in the last month? In this exceptional times, let's see the answers. Only 50% have chosen an option, so maybe there's some more people who want to answer to this question. I wait for further five seconds. Yes, more answers coming here. Okay, I close the poll. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Should be able to see it now. Miriam, here's the results.
Okay, so we see, as also Fred has already told, it's a rather exceptional time probably for online purchases in this period, but I think that could be just some interesting trend. So we see there are people that at least buy at least online purchase during this period. So just to enter better on the topics, so we will talk about data management, but more related with freight transport. And so could be useful, this topic for the local authorities. In fact, we see that we know that from some number in the literature that in Europe, urban freight is responsible for the 25% of urban transport-related CO2 emissions. And these deliveries, as also we have saw from this pool, could have a significant impact in terms of traveling around the city. So also in terms of traffic congestions in urban area, with a good amount of overall kilometers traveled along the city. And some numbers say that approximately 25–30% of all urban deliveries are carried out through light vans in Europe. So it's a good amount of traffic going on around the city. So the cities are expected, and local authorities are expected to focus also on this theme and on this topic. So this is one of the aim of our project, our Swiss project. And so while commonly local authorities are usually more let's say used of working with passenger mobility traffic data and issues, there is a little low knowledge about urban freight. So this is where we would like to help them with our tools and our knowledge to propose and to go on with the sustainable urban logistic planning. So in my presentation, I will let's say join with the part related and presented already by Fotis, and what is going to present later, and with a specific application in the city of Turin, that is also a city partner in the Swiss project. And we are talking about a traces data set of logistic vehicle fleet traveling around the city. We focus on a month, is 2017, May 2017. We collected and we have some data of these vehicles traveling around the city with their position when this position has been registered, and their speed. And then we have also available another kind of data set. It is the one related to the traffic flow in the city network, or also in this case we are talking about the city of Turin. And so we have the number of vehicles and traveling along the different road of the city, and the travel time necessary to travel along this road. So I will give some hints about the methodology steps. The first step requires the spatial join of this position on the network, ARC network. So for example, in this picture, we see the vehicle that is labeled like with the number 32 that is entering the city along a specific arc in a certain moment of the day. So we see that it's traveling along this arc. But then we would like to know something more about the travel time necessary to travel along this arc. So we check what time it passes next to the origin of this arc, and what time it passes next to the end of this arc. So we could estimate a travel time necessary to go on along this arc. However, as it could be imagined, there could be also some stop recorded. And so we focus on the duration of these stops, and we fix a limit of 2 minutes, expecting that if a stop is bigger, higher than 2 minutes, it is due to service operation. So the final aim is to gain a plot like this one that we see in the picture. It is something very common to be seen in traffic assignment models. And it is based firstly on the dataset related to the traffic flow. So we see that we have the number of vehicles traveling in an hour time all along the day, all along the month that we consider. And on the y-axis, the time necessary to travel along this arc in this different period of the day. So this plot could help us in evaluate the free flow, the so-called free flow travel time. Let's say it is a measure commonly used to consider the uncongested road condition along a specific arc, that is the one that we consider. For example, if you see in the picture, it is the part and the number of elements that could be found in the circle in the left of the plot, and if you see, they are mainly corresponding to the night and the early morning. So once that we have this information gathered from the traffic flow dataset, we could try to join this with information coming from the GPS dataset. So we can define a KPI that we call the time lost in congestion KPI, and it comes from the so-called net GPS travel time. Let's say it is the time necessary for the vehicle that we have monitored to travel along a certain arc, and then we remove the time necessary to stop due to delivery, and so we have, as I said, the net GPS travel time. And then the final formulation of this KPI is given by the free flow travel time, that is the one that we computed from the traffic flow dataset, where we can then remove the net GPS travel time. So we have a KPI that, for example, in this picture is negative because we see that the free flow travel time is lower than the net GPS travel time. And so in this case, we can say that these vehicles travels along this arc and lost congestion along this arc, traveling along this arc. On the contrary, if this KPI is positive, we can say that these vehicles save time traveling without congestion along the road. So what can we do with this kind of information? For example, we can assess which is the current situation of all the arcs in the city, and this is a selection of arcs in the city of Turin. And for example, we can see that there are different KPI values in different moments of the day. And it is interesting to see that we can also check the direction of the traveling of the vehicles that are entering the city during the morning and going out in the city during the evening. And then we can also focus not only on the arc, but also on the vehicles. Let's say we can see these vehicles that are losing more time in congestion, traveling around the city and doing their deliveries along the day. And a further step is the one that is related to the observation of the freight flow from demand side. Let's say we focus on the stops that we recorded, and as I was telling before, we focus on the stops that are lasting more than 2 minutes because we expect that they are due to deliveries and to effective stops and not to traffic condition, yielding, or the phase of traffic light. And we focus on a specific area of the city that is the limited traffic zone in the city center of Turin. And we found 3,336 stops that are coming, that are in these that have these characteristics for 19 different vehicles. So first overview of what we can do with this kind of information. We can check the number of stops did for each of these vehicles, how much time lasted these stops, so we can have more information on how much time it took to do the deliveries, and also when these stops are done along the day, so we can see different time ranges along the day. And what we did next, we focus on all the points that were in the previous slides, and we use a clustering algorithm that help us in extracting the areas that are more used to deliveries and are the one that you can see in this picture. And then we needed to focus on some of these areas to go on with the pilot. And so we took into account some other aspects that could be used to define the test site for the tool. And we fix on the availability and the presence of already available load and unload area that are the black spots on the map. We can check how much lasted the stops that we found in different clusters and how many vehicles delivered in these clusters. And we can also decide to focus on the vehicles that, according to the preliminary previous KPI, lost more time in congestion. And then we took also into account some other characteristics of the streets, like the fact they are pedestrian, restricted to traffic, and so on. And so we focus on a specific area of the city, in the city center, where two load and unload bay are already available. It is a city that are restricted traffic in the morning, so only some specific kind of vehicles are allowed to travel inside the district. And then we go on there and we collect some information as the one provided in the table on the operator that traveled and delivered, how much packages have been delivered, how much time lasted in the stop, and so on. And so these are some examples of the information that we can extract from a tool like this one. So how much lasted the stops events in minutes interval. So we see that most of them are lower than 8 minutes. And then we see when these stops are done and how many packages have been delivered during the different day of the week that we investigated and during the morning or the afternoon. So to sum up, we try to provide a policy relevant KPI that is the one that we define average time lost in congestion that could help the cities to measure how the congestion affect different traffic stream or user groups. And this has been done through the integration of different kind of data sources and one more infrastructure based, that is the one related to the traffic flows, and the one with the traces of the fleet. And this could be exploited to assess the already available unload and load parking spots when we focus on the stops done by the vans, the vehicles. And also could be useful to understand which actions the local authorities should address to ameliorate the urban freight policies at different locations, looking at these deliveries that are done in specific streets. And just to give some hints of exploitation, there will be Mireia later that will be focusing more on this. And we think that we can try to provide an innovative data integration method that it could be rather flexible, because it could work on different kind of data set according to the availability of data. As you see, Fotis will show some example of data available. And there are some potentially useful, it can be useful to inform a different range of policy action, focusing on the arcs that are more critical for determining certain travel purposes, the more congested areas in the city, the congested lines. And so we think that it could be interesting and could provide useful insights for different stakeholders like city administration, transport service operation, a different kind of social group. So thank you very much for the attention. I give my floor to Fred. Okay.
Yes, yes, because I have a couple of questions. Thank you so much, Miriam, for this very interesting presentation. Again, we have quite some questions, so I will go through this. The first question, and this is to Fotis. I think he will answer it in his next presentation. How are data collected? Through smartphones or navigators? And what about privacy issues? We will postpone answering this question because I think Fotis will speak about this just in his next presentation. Then we have, if I'm not correct with anything, please raise your hand. We don't want to miss anything. The next question is from Beatrice. How can we use this for urban freight delivery analysis? So this is basically a question that had been asked before, Miriam, your presentation. So I hope this has, Miriam has answered your question, if you like, already with her presentation. If this is not the case, then please raise your hand. Then we have a question from Patrick Meyer-Egger, again to Fotis, to you. What kind of attributes are attached to the trace files? Not about kind of vehicles they are recorded on, but what attributes are attached to the trace files? Did we answer this question? Fotis, please help me.
I can very fast answer that. It's basically location coordinates, speed, perhaps altitude, that, and timestamp, of course. That's the minimum GPS data.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Bhuvana to you, Miriam. Interesting. How do you define the optimal flow in your model?
Let's say I imagine, wait, I go on the slide. I imagine with the free flow travel time. Let's say when we don't have the congested road, let's say it's related to the road information that we have. So there are some more details. I will give a suggestion to go on and look at our research paper that we wrote on this methodology. However, just in general view, we focus on certain days of the month that we investigated, and we see when we have the minimum value of travel time. So we expect that is the moment where let's say the road is rather free and there is no vehicle traveling, and so it is what we expect to be a moment of free flow travel time. So it's the minimum time necessary to travel along the arc that we are focusing on. And so we did this for all the roads in the city. So we have a different value for each of the arc, obviously, because each arc is different. So I hope my question answered.
Yeah. I think this is the level of service A, right? Isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Next question again from Bhuvana. Why do you have Friday the morning and evening for loading and unloading times? Is there any specific reason that it's Friday precisely?
I imagine it's this one.
Yeah.
I think it depends probably on the area where we focus. It was a a street in the city center with a lot of shops, clothing shops and so on. So probably it's a sort of preparation to the Saturday, and there are a lot of deliveries that have been done in that period. I think we didn't focus on the weekend, only we say on the working days, let's say. And I think this is the main reason of this. But I think it's also interesting to analyze this. It could provide useful information because you can have an overview of what is going on in, as you say, in the different days of the week and in different moments also of the day. And this could be very useful for the local authorities to understand if it is useful to go on with some delivery bay and load bay with different timing and going on with some special permits. So I think this is another useful way of exploiting this kind of data.
Okay. Further question. Thank you so much, Miriam. Further question to you from Carla Schulte-Fischedick. Is there also an analysis for the stops for other vehicles like bus lines, for example, where they block the traffic of buses?
Not yet, sorry. No, we mainly focus on this kind of vehicle that is a logistic pick. But as I was saying in the conclusion, we can exploit this kind of methodology for all different kind of data.
Okay, thanks.
I hope I respond to the question.
I think so. I would say yes. If this is not the case, I mean, again, you can. Oh, it's not. So, well, what can we do? I can either unmute you, Carla, if you feel comfortable in speaking English. You can also try to speak in German if you want to, and I try to translate that. So please give me a. Okay. Let's do it in German. Let's try to discuss in German. Where can I find? I will unmute you now, Carla, if I find your name in the list. So you are now unmuted. And you can ask your question in German, and I try to translate that.
I could try in English, but I'm not sure. Perhaps we'll try. My question was about, in my daily life, I always be blocked in buses by freight transports who are blocking, standing on the lines of buses. So my question would be, or it could be good to analyze also where they are parking when they do their Auslieferung to
delivery.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah.
There's an impact on the public traffic, which could make other people think about if they use the bus and all the stuff. There's another impact which is larger than only getting out their freights. That's one question.
Yeah, I think this could be useful. Yes, as you say, I didn't understand it previously, but now I realize it better. Okay, I think this could be also useful for local authorities, as you say, because if you know that our vehicles delivering and stopping the bus lane, could be interesting to focus on where they stops. I admit that the precision of the stops, I'm not sure it could be so much detailed to go on and to understand if they are exactly stopping on a bus lane or on let's say another part of the street not so far from the bus lane. But I think that this could be interesting to focus on that, and also the other kind of pilot that we did on site could also be useful for this. For example, when we were on site, our location was not on a bus lane and so on, but we saw that there were some delivery bays that could not be exploited because, for example, there were other vehicles, other kind of vehicles, not delivering vehicles that are parking. So let's say the on-site pilot is important also to focus on these aspects. I don't know if I helped.
Actually, I'm going to also show some results regarding this about the loading and unloading zones of freight and how this affects the mobility situation, the traffic conditions in the city in my presentation right next.
Yes, thank you, Fotis. And then there is another question which I think you can answer during your presentation. It's about about the apps and which need to be installed, and the question of anonymous data. So you will, so I will postpone this question because Fotis, you will be answering, I think, definitely this during your next presentation. But there is still
yeah, that's right.
Another final question from Esan Aminazami. Sorry if I didn't pronounce this correctly. So would you explain how the net GPS travel time can be less than the free flow travel time? I think this is a misunderstanding, or isn't it, Miriam?
I think I understand. In this case, yeah, it means that yeah, currently it's not easy to be explained. I think that probably, as you see, it's some numbers given by some average values. So probably it is mainly due to this, the fact that when we work and we extract the free float over time is given by average values. And another, let's say, little bias could be also given by the fact that the recording are given by 10 seconds recording. So there are some approximation in the evaluation. So I think this is this bias could be removed by the fact that we focus on monthly, on entire month of data. So in this case, we work on averages. So we could try to have some better results.
Thank you so much, Miriam. I'm really happy about all these questions because this shows that your presentation was very interesting, and also Fotis, your presentation. We will hand over to Fotis now. Let me. Now you see my screen. Fotis, I just try to hand over to you. Just 1 second. And you will explain the mypolislive.net platform, right? And then we can, afterwards, we can continue with this discussion. So, 1 second, please. Why don't I? Now I got it. Now you should have the panel,
Yep.
the control panel, yeah.
Okay, so this is the second part of my presentation, and it has to do with presenting tools that are used for real-time, this time, real-time mobility data handling. So basically, I'm going to present the web platform that we have developed for this purpose, mypolislive.net, that was developed by Boeing, and also the Kalamaria pilot, which was conducted during the SUITS project. So this picture shows the crowdsourcing data collection and exploitation model that we propose for local authorities, basically for small and medium cities, integrating citizen mobility and logistics mobility data. So on the circle on the right, you can see the acquisition of citizen and logistics traffic data. And on the circle on the left, you can see the exploitation of this data. In the middle, there is the collection point where data is collected, processed in infrastructure, probably cloud infrastructure that belongs to the city, and by city tools that we have provided. So the city has the ability then to do urban traffic management, to monitor the urban citizen mobility as well as the logistics mobility. To demonstrate the concept of real-time urban mobility tracking through crowdsourcing, we ran a pilot in the city of Kalamaria between October 2018 and January 2019. What we did is we installed a low-cost commercial GPS tracker in 50 vehicles with a one-time cost, installation cost of 55 euros approximately, and plus a telecom cost of 3.5 euros per month. So this was a very low-cost installation, and with only 50 vehicles, we managed to do impressive things, as you will see later on. In Zboing, we developed the a web platform, mypolislive.net, which was used to monitor the participating vehicles as well as the city's traffic conditions in real time. As an incentive to participate, we offered to all participants both, of course, the tracker, the installed tracker, as well as the use for unlimited time of the mypolislive.net. So for example, a participating citizen could monitor their vehicle for free in our platform and also get the tracker for free in exchange for participating in the project and contributing data for the 4 months of the pilot. Of course, everything was done with GDPR compliance, and eventually, and that was a pilot project that was done with the collaboration of the city in Kalamaria and Vodafone as a telecom provider. Zboing has developed an Android offline navigator app called Ultinavi, which is also available. It was made available for multimedia consoles of vehicles, like the one shown here in the photos. We call this car adapted version, we call it Ulticar Navi, and it's basically is used as an incentive for people to contribute. So we offer this offline navigator with maps for the entire world to everybody who wants to contribute data, whether historical data in the form of files, Gpx files, for example, or real-time data if the user is connected. And this is an overview of the evolution of the Kalamaria pilot project in terms of vehicle participation through the pilot duration, as well as in terms of database growth. The mypolislive platform is a web platform for urban mobility monitoring that was developed during the SUITS project and for the purposes mainly of the Kalamaria pilot. Here are some views of this platform. The upper left view, for example, is a view of the vehicle's position and status in real time, and on the right side here of its history, mobility history. So each user, these views are actually provided to individual participants through access authentication. So each participating user has then an incentive to contribute by just being provided with the functionality of this platform. So they can have a username and password, enter in the platform and monitor their vehicle, past history, the routes that it has taken, and so on. On the bottom part, we can see that the platform shows the entire city's road network. The platform automatically generates the entire city's road network. So for any city, this can be done very fast. No manual intervention is necessary. And on that, I will demonstrate later how this is shown. But on this city network, for every road segment, you can have a vast, a lot of information regarding the mobility, citizen mobility, logistics mobility, and so on. Most important, this tool, this platform is for free. Is offered for free for any city to use it with the only in exchange of data co-sharing with us. This is a comparison between our platform with other platforms showing real-time traffic conditions. For example, in this case, these are snapshots of the traffic conditions in Kalamaria. Kalamaria, by the way, is a city near Thessaloniki in Greece. And this is the traffic conditions of January 18, 2019 at around 11:45 a.m. In the middle, you can see the traffic conditions in color code as depicted by the MyPolis, our mypolislive.net platform. On the left, for comparison, is the Google traffic image, and on the right is the traffic conditions from Traffic Test, which is another real-time traffic conditions provider in Thessaloniki. So you can see that the traffic conditions are depicted by our platform in a great level of detail on a per road segment level, and also that it matches the traffic conditions depicted by Google. But the only difference, well, not the only difference, but a major difference being that our image here, our picture here, is only produced by only 50 vehicles. If the number of vehicles is bigger, then more detail, more accuracy can be achieved. This is another view provided by the platform. This is about a historical view, and here you can define the day of interest and the time. So, for example, here it is shown what's the average traffic picture in Kalamaria on Wednesdays between 8 o'clock and 10 a.m. A number of other views is shown here. Right here, you can see for every road segment in the city's road network, and for any time and day of the week, by specifying the time and day of the week, you can see a speed distribution graph. You can see the different speeds that the vehicles were moving in that road segment. You can also have other views like frequencies and directions of mobility and so on. And each individual users right here, you can have a speed graph of its vehicles throughout the day. Another very interesting, very useful view for the city is this this graph, which shows that for the traffic load for any road segment for any day and time of the week. So you can see here that some time zones are sort of congested with red color, dark red color, and some are really light with green or yellow color. The MyPolis Live platform can be used for freight traffic profiling in urban environments. In particular, we can segregate traffic contributions. You can see here how. From different sources, for example, from citizens, from logistics, and perhaps from other sources that we get data from, and derive independent and also correlated results from these sources. In this view, you can see a display of road popularity. In other words, and this is specifically chosen for logistics, and you can see that for logistics, the most popular roads were these ones that are shown here, and also the stops density, which places were mostly used for delivering goods. So by using this platform, the city can achieve the following. It's a long list here. Freight traffic profiling by visualizing the most frequently delivered points, like stops and so on, and the most popular routes taken by freight. Direct correlation of freight traffic with the rest of the city traffic, for example, with citizen mobility. Impact evaluation of the temporary or permanent mobility measures taken by the city and related to freight. For example, route changes, delivery time frames, loading zones, etc. Also, reduction of the number of freight trucks delivering goods within congestion areas, reduction of driven distances and traveling time. This is also important both for citizens and logistics. Improvement of urban accessibility, quality of living, economic growth of the affected areas, and all these by optimizing the speed of distribution of goods. And of course, reduction of pollutant emissions and energy consumption. So a lot of benefits by correlating freight traffic and with the rest of with the rest of the city traffic. This is another view, again, segregated, so you can choose which contribution of traffic you want to depict, to show, but in terms of historical traffic data this time. So for any given day and time of day of the week and time of the day, you can select whether you want logistics or city vehicles or other categories, and you can see the traffic contribution to the city city traffic picture. You can have, of course, more sources of that, like from taxis, from buses, and this is actually a big advantage of using this type of crowdsourcing compared to other sources. Like, for example, if you get data from cellular providers, then you don't have a differentiation between these classes of, you don't have this segregation of the traffic data. Because you don't know which data is coming from taxis, from logistics, from citizens, or from buses. The same from third-party data, like from Google and so on. But using this type of crowdsourcing that we have demonstrated in the Calamaria pilot, we can do this kind of thing, and this is very useful. In terms of security and privacy, it's a big concern, of course, that we had to deal with very seriously since the very beginning of Boeing, and of course during the Calamaria pilot and throughout the SUITS project. What we do is basically we collect the data and we anonymize, or we prefer actually to pseudonymize the data as soon as we receive it. In the future, we plan to do full anonymization so that the data can reach our servers through an anonymization network, like the Tor network, and that would make it even more respect even more privacy concerns. But in this case, we just did the pseudonymization of the floating car data. One way of doing that is by actually two of our rules were, first of all, filtering out all consecutive trace data corresponding to vehicle speed less than ½ km/h and for a duration of more than 2 minutes. And another one is to filter out trace data points both before and after each identified long stop sequence. In this way, our data is does not lead to any specific individual. Therefore, it is GDPR compliant, and it can be uploaded to Open Data Repository if the city wishes so. And speaking of Open Data Repositories, here's one that we developed during the SUITS project. It's called SUITS Open Data Repository, or SUITS ODR. It provides access to both visitors who can just download the data and use it for any purposes that they want, non-commercial purposes, research, and so on. And there is a section for contributors where anybody, or in our case, the cities, can open up their data after pseudonymization or anonymization, of course, GDPR compliant data, using this section here. And this is how the visitor access looks like. This is open, so you don't need a password or authentication for that. On the left panel here, there is the search criteria. It can be text search and based on other metadata of the available data set. Here you can see the list of available data, which you can download and use it, respecting always the terms of the license terms. This is how the section for contributors looks like. It's very easy to use for cities to upload their open data. So you can just create a data collection and upload it. For this section, you need to have username and password, so it's after authentication in order to protect the validity of the data. And we have listed our open data repository in Re3 Data, which is a global European repository, a registrar actually of research data repositories. And it is available for any data uploads or downloads. So this concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. I'll pass the mic to Fred.
Yes, thank you so much, Fotis. Indeed, there are a couple of questions. First question I can answer myself, whether the presentations will be made available. This is from Maria Capogreco. Thank you for this question. I would say yes, because we will upload this webinar to YouTube. And we will also, as I mentioned, currently here at the Wuppertal Institute, we are developing this e-learning platform, anywaycampus.org, and I mean the presentations will be the core for the e-learning course which we are developing. Then next question, there's a couple of questions from Ivana. I will unmute you in a minute. And then there is another question from Markus Lavash. Is it possible, Fotis, to upload data Gpx traces on my Pradas Live platform from some databases, or does it work only with real-time data collected via the trackers which are installed on the vehicles?
Well, the platform is for monitoring real-time data, so basically tracked vehicles. So if you have a group of vehicles that, of course, these can be tracked. Right now, we don't support, of course, every possible tracker that there is out there in the market, but we can support, depending on the need and on the demand, we can support other trackers as well. Usually, normally the tools was developed and is made available for cities to monitor the resources or the vehicles or the city vehicles, but it can also be available for other purposes, for logistics companies, other purposes as well. Any kind of organization can use it to track vehicles, basically, and to get all this information.
Yes. Thank you. Another question from Luca Barbadoro about mypolislive.net. Fotis, did you analyze what is the minimum percentage between monitored vehicles and the population of so the share of a specific area to get a good approximation of real-time traffic?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question, and it puzzled us as well. We had to answer it. Of course, 50 vehicles that we used in the Kalamaria pilot was a relatively small number. We estimate that we need roughly 200 vehicles for a city like Kalamaria, which is 200,000 people. Of course, the more vehicles, the better. So I would go between 200 and 500 vehicles. However, it's going to be very interesting to see that right now we are monitoring the Thessaloniki traffic conditions. If you see this view right here, And this is done using about right now 350 taxis of about 50 taxis right now. So and Thessaloniki is a city of roughly 1 million. So this is a similar project, similar to the Kalamaria pilot.
Okay. Next question. For parkings, what type of data do you include?
We haven't done this for parkings yet, but of course they can be included as well in the platform. So right now, parking sensors are not supported directly by the platform, but this is something that we have thought about it, and it's in the next plans, of course, if demand is out there.
Okay, and can My Polis Live be used for cities outside of Europe? This is a question from Beatrice. How can I get in touch to use this platform for my city?
Yeah, of course. As I said, Boeing is a global, is a company working with global navigation, global maps. So we have the map of the entire world. So any city of the world can be can make use of this platform. And this, as I said, the city road network is automatically generated for any city. We haven't tested it for complexity of New York in very big cities, but definitely for medium and large cities is okay and works fine.
And there's a couple of questions, for example, one from Gerhard Lang, which I'm currently reading now, about emissions. What are the specific effects of mypolislive.net platform regarding sustainability issues? So air quality, greenhouse gas emission, fuel consumption. Yeah. So did you, for example, include the HBEFA, the handbook for the calculation of emission factors? This is another similar question.
Yeah, well, the mypolislive.net platform is for monitoring and seeing, evaluating the effects of urban policy making. So depending on the policies, you can get feedback from the platform. You cannot measure these KPIs, for example, the pollution and energy consumption and these things through the platform, but it can be used in order to evaluate your measures, and this is that's why I'm showing this specific slide here. So, for example, by correlating freight traffic with the rest of the city's traffic, you can perhaps take some mobility measures regarding loading, unloading, time zones and areas, and which will alleviate the traffic. And that goes back to a question that was asked earlier about how to optimize the traffic in the city. So if the congestion is alleviated by taking measures, considering the freight stops and the freight popular roads, perhaps redirecting freight traffic and taking other measures, then you have an immediate, not immediate, but indirect effect, all the other benefits like reduction in pollution and energy consumption.
Okay, thank you. I have another couple of questions, or let's say at least one question from Ivana. Ivana, can we postpone this because we're running out of time now? So you can engage directly with Fotis. I mean, Fotis, probably you can provide your email address or something so people can contact you. Okay, thank you, Ivana. One final question I would like to ask, which still tackles the issue of data privacy. So there was one question about you mentioned in your presentation that people who provide the data, they do this with the condition of co-sharing their data. What exactly means this? Could you please again explain this again?
Yeah, by co-sharing means that we offer the use of the platform for free, and what we do is we get in exchange, I mean, Zvoink, the company, gets in exchange the right to use the data for commercial purposes, of course, anonymized, respecting all the privacy of the users and so on.
Okay. Thank you so much, Fotis. We have prepared another poll. You can see this now on your screen. Maybe you can take 1 or 2 minutes to answer this poll. So the question is, would you install a GPS tracker to contribute your mobility data anonymously in exchange for real-time traffic information? So this relates to these questions and to the presentation, to the previous presentation from Fotis. So the question is, would you install a GPS tracker to contribute your mobility data anonymously in exchange for real-time traffic information? And we close the poll right now, and we broadcast the answers. So 86% would do so. 14% wouldn't do so. Is somebody willing from those people who said no to, because this is just interesting for me, and if somebody is willing to answer why they said no, I wouldn't do this, answer because of what specific question, what specific reason you wouldn't do it, you would refrain from doing it. So that would be quite interesting. Is there somebody who would answer this from those people who said no?
It's a very interesting and encouraging result, actually.
It is indeed. So yes, you're right. You're right, Fotis. So first of all, 86% said yes. So that's basically the most important result. Yes, but still, I would like to ask. So I unmute you, Bhuvana, because you raised your hand. Did you say no? Did you say no? You're unmuted now. And if yes, why? So no answer from this side. Okay, anyway. So thank you so much, Fotis. We're running out of time anyhow. 86% would say yes, so you can do that. I think using the mypolislife.net platform. And I would like to conclude, not me myself, but I would like to hand over now to Mireia. Hello, Mireia, who will have some. Yes. I need to close the broadcasting of the poll. Yes. Hello, Mireia. Can you have some concluding words on what we discussed about business cases? How can cities, for example, what are the actual end users of these tools? I presume mainly cities, but maybe also other companies. How can they exploit it and make business cases out of it? And I hand you over the moderation.
Okay.
And you can share your screen now. Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Firstly, thank you, Fred, for organizing this webinar, and also thanks to Miriam and Fotis for explaining these interesting tools. Now I'm going to explain how are the main overview, the benefits of these tools explained by Fotis and Miriam through 4 quickly steps. First, the challenge to be answered. Second, the usability. Third, the impact. And 4, who will benefit from them. So we have analyzed how we can use the Gpx traces We have assessed the load and unload spot places in a city. Specifically, this was tested in Torino, and it was also analyzed how to monitor the urban traffic through crowdsourcing, and it is visualized in mypolislive.net. So from these three tools, we can extract and collect traffic data. We can monitor and use real-time and historical traffic. We can differentiate between the freight and passenger traffic in vehicles. And this is a good point for the cities. And we can also know how the infrastructure, the different roads and parking spots are used. So all this information can be used to develop integrated transport plannings in the different cities. The second point is the usability of these tools. From these tools, we can extract information about the traffic and also visualization of the traffic in the cities. We can use this information to evaluate new mobility measures to be applied in the cities. For example, if we want to pedestrianize a street or modify the traffic direction or slow down the speed, we are able to visualize how will be the impact in the traffic of the city and how these measures will change the main flows in the city. We can also make an assessment of the load and unload places. We can assess which places are overused or which are with excess of using, or we need extra places, and the cities are able to implement new parking places in the places that there are lack of them, or to modify the use of the low and download places where these places are not to be using. For example, they can keep in the morning these places for the use of freight vehicles to deliver their goods, but in the afternoon this parking place can be used for parking spaces. These tools are also useful in order to organize a big event or when the city has street works and know how the flows of the traffic in the city will go and how it will affect to the city. And it is also useful in a bigger working areas to assess the mobility to the daily mobility to these big areas in the different cities. The impact. With the different tools that we have seen during this webinar, we extract the traffic profiles. We can see the frequent delivery points, the popular routes, where are the congestion points, and the main flows through the city. With this information, we assess the impact of the mobility measures related to freight and mobility, and we are able to develop and support the local authorities to develop sustainable urban mobility plans and sustainable urban logistics plans. Moreover, the decisions made are also supported by the historical data, and this data collected before can also support the decisions to which measure to apply or which other. Finally, the main impact is with these new policy measures to implement in the city, improve the urban accessibility in the city on the one side, and on the other side, the main impact is to optimize and improve the efficiency of the distribution of goods inside the city. What that means in a reduction of the pollution emissions and increase the quality life in the city. Finally, who can be benefit of these tools? Firstly, the local authorities, because they are good tools to support them to develop these new mobility measures. Also, taxi fleets can be benefit from these tools because they can analyze how they circulate around the city, and they can know where are the hot points where they used to get more users, avoiding the empty running during the city. Also, sharing services fleet companies, because they can get a better distribution of the vehicles in the city. For example, if in the morning they are more demand of sharing fleet vehicles in one point of the city, they can redistribute these vehicles during the night to cover this demand in this specific point. Also, logistics company, they will benefit from the measures developed, and they also will benefit because they have the traceability of the vehicles from the origin to destination, and they are monitored during all the travel. The IT companies, because all of the data sets that these tools extract and all the data information, but also because they are able to develop new apps. For example, one of them could be a booking app for the parking spot, and that will benefit for an efficient management of the parking spot. And also the big companies, in order to assess the flows of their workers from their homes to the work, and assess if the infrastructures that they have and provide to the workers are enough or not, or they need to increase the parking spaces or to promote the sustainable transport between their workers. And that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much. We have concluded, this is now the very end of this webinar. We have had, I think, 1.5 very interesting hours. And I would like to share my screen a very last time. Hope that works now. To show this nice picture from the Suits project participants, and this will should also show you the Suits project website again, and the e-learning platform that I mentioned a couple of times. So please click on it. The e-learning platform is still under development here at the Wuppertal Institute, but there are already a couple of interesting e-learning courses also from the Suits project online. So that concludes our webinar, and thank you so much for joining. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.